One berry, bright red, glossy, hanging low enough for a child's hand to reach. The fingers stop before they close around it. No one taught this hesitation. No parent standing nearby. No memory of a story told at night. It arrived already installed, inherited from generations who never saw this child, never touched this berry, never spoke a single word of warning that could travel this far through time. Most people assume our ancestors learned what was safe to eat through trial and error. Taste something. Wait. Remember. It sounds reasonable. Until you notice the flaw hiding inside it. Trial and error only works if you survive the trial. A wrong route, a mushroom left too long in the shade, something small enough to fit in the palm of a hand, lethal enough to end a life in hours. One mistake and there is no second attempt, no lesson passed on, only silence where a person used to stand. If early humans had actually relied on personal experimentation to map every danger in their environment, the species would have ended within its first few thousand years. So something else must have been doing the work. Something faster than memory, bolder than language. Start with the sense that seems, on the surface, the crudest of the five. Taste. Bitterness provokes almost the same reaction everywhere on Earth. Newborns who have never eaten a single solid meal will still contort their faces the instant something bitter touches their tongue, before any understanding of danger could possibly exist. That is not disgust in the way we normally use the word. It behaves more like a verdict, delivered before the mind is even in the room. Many of the compounds plants evolved specifically to poison the animals that eat them do share a bitter chemical signature, which makes bitterness an early built-in warning system passed down through the tongue itself. But here's where the story gets more complicated than it first appears. Some bitter plants are perfectly safe, and some of the deadliest substances in nature carry almost no flavor at all. Few taste pleasant, right up until the moment the damage becomes irreversible, which means the warning system built into your mouth was never complete. It was only the first layer. Consider what a single wrong choice actually looked like tens of thousands of years ago, long before anyone understood chemistry or physiology. One person eats an unfamiliar root. Nothing happens. Relief. Maybe even relief shared out loud. Another person, days later, eats the same plant from a different patch of soil. 3 days pass. Then they cannot stand. No one in that group would ever need an explanation. The plant itself became the explanation. Untouched, unspoken, avoided for reasons that outlived the memory of exactly why. This is where nausea enters the story, and it enters looking like a design flaw rather than a design. For most of modern history, nausea has been treated as an inconvenience. Something to suppress, something to medicate away as quickly as possible. But researchers studying pregnancy noticed something that didn't fit that assumption. Nausea and food aversion spike dramatically during the earliest weeks of fetal development, precisely the window when a developing body is most vulnerable to toxins and pathogens. For decades, many scientists treated this as an unfortunate biological glitch, an unpleasant side effect with no real purpose. Now, a competing explanation has gained serious traction. Some researchers argue this glitch may actually be a protective mechanism, heightening sensitivity to dangerous foods at exactly the moment the body can least afford a mistake. The very sensation people spend their lives trying to eliminate may be one of the oldest bodyguards the human body has ever built, and the protection didn't stop at the edge of a single body. Picture an early human community encountering an unfamiliar plant together for the first time. No laboratory, no written record, only watching. Watching who ate, watching who got sick, watching who quietly stopped walking toward a certain tree without ever explaining why. Anthropologists studying hunter-gatherer societies have described food knowledge as something that rarely lives inside one mind. It spreads across a group like a nervous system stretched between many bodies, each person carrying a fragment. No single person carrying the whole picture. One elder's memory of a single illness, decades old, could quietly steer an entire community away from a plant forever. The danger forgotten, the caution surviving intact. This is not the same as the berry-avoiding instinct in a child. This is something larger. Culture, functioning as memory. Memory, functioning as immunity. And once you see it this way, a strange piece of human behavior suddenly stops looking irrational. The reluctance to try new foods, the suspicion children show toward unfamiliar dishes, even the small, involuntary caution adults feel walking into an unfamiliar kitchen, tasting something prepared by hands they've never seen cook before. For decades, this was dismissed as pickiness, a failure of adventurousness. But researchers studying this pattern across different cultures have reached a different conclusion. This wariness likely served a genuine survival function for tens of thousands of years, precisely calibrated to guard against the most consistent, most repeated source of danger a human being ever faced. Not predators, not weather, food itself, 3 times a day, for an entire lifetime. Of the roughly 6,000 plant species humans have eaten throughout history, only a few hundred make up the overwhelming majority of what the world eats today. That narrowing wasn't an accident. It was survival, quietly deciding, generation after generation, which risks were no longer worth taking. Layer these systems together and something larger comes into focus. A tongue that rejects danger before understanding exists. A body that turns briefly against itself at exactly the moment protection matters most. A community that remembers a threat long after any single member has forgotten it. A quiet resistance to the unfamiliar, inherited rather than taught. None of it required science. None of it required language sophisticated enough to explain toxicity, chemistry, or risk. It only required survival to keep selecting over and over for bodies and instincts that flinched at the right moment, which means the knowledge was never actually missing. It was never spoken aloud in the first place. It lived in the recoil of a tongue, the churn of a stomach, the glance of a watching elder, the stubborn hesitation of a child refusing to eat. So the next time hesitation rises before a bite, before a smell, before a plate set down by someone you've just met, that pause is not indecision. It is a message, arriving from further away than memory can reach, still doing the only job it was ever built to do.